right, so it's been a little while. I figured I'd check in, let everybody know I'm still alive. So today, I'm building Marshmellos, the 1 amp in particular, and was building a board. So I figured I'd just, shoot a quick video to say hi to everybody and show you like how boards are made or how I make boards. So it starts off basically with this sheet. Let me get some here. I probably should have been more prepared for everything, but kind of working on the fly here. So it starts off with like just basic sheets of this G10 FR4 black phenolic glass sheet. And it's cut to the size of the board that I want, right? Which is for the Marshmello, the 1. So then I would do a layout of what the amplifier actually is, right? Where the holes are and everything. And so I know that I'm building something good, and this will become the template. So with that, I basically take a piece of red phenolic here that's pre-drilled out. And it has, the old time sort of Marshall spacing between the different holes here for insertion of turrets. So what I then do is I would double stick tape this on to a, I probably have a bigger board that I actually used it with, but a bigger piece of this. So I would just double stick tape this on, and then I would cover it in masking tape, and then punch out through the masking tape wherever I want a hole. So I basically end up with this. All right, so this was the masking tape that was laid on top of, in a sense, a board, right? What I would do then is just go ahead and drill through all those places where I would want a turret, and as well where I'd want like a wire to kind of come up through to wrap around and to give sort of strain relief from any kind of vibration or tugs or stuff like this. So that then becomes the master, which is this board right here with all its holes in here, which I then basically taped over again, just so it's easy to see where the holes are. And then you would take this master and double stick tape it on another board and just go ahead and chase out through all of these holes with the appropriate drill bit to make your board, right? So then you end up with what is essentially this. And I've started this already, but you have all these holes here, big holes, little holes, big holes for the wire to poke through, right? So that one's gonna be complicated to stuff through, but basically we go up through here, right? If you've seen me do this like time and time again, go up through here and wrap around one of these turrets, right? And then you'd solder it in place. And that would give you, a really secure mil-spec sort of connection that will survive on the road, which is, all the stuff that I build. It's like, well, what's the point of buying like an amp if it's not going to be really roadworthy? I don't see a point in it. And you want something that's not going to break out there. And the best way to do it is to follow what the military decided was, because nobody's harder on their stuff than they are. So the way that they wired radios during World War II, Vietnam, Korea, all the different wars, before everything started to be kind of unreliable, was by following a specific build protocol. And it goes with like what materials are to be used, how they're to be assembled, what the wiring techniques are, how the soldering goes, all those kinds of things. So that's basically what the British were doing during World War II. And they had, radio factories in Bletchley. And those radio factories were populated by lots of people who learned how to build radios for the war effort. And when the war effort was over, they had a skill set that Jim Marshall took advantage of, as well as other audio companies took advantage of, and were building their amplifiers in Bletchley, which was where a lot of the radio factories were already. So it was kind of a marriage of convenience. So this is sort of how it goes. So I could show you how I sort of install the turrets. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, so I'm over here. So I got a, a big bag of these things, and I've got a little staking tool here, right? And then I've got a hammer, and I've got this little thing here that holds the turret in place. So I take a turret, right, and I place it, oh, there you go. Place it in there, then you're gonna place your board over it, and I'm gonna lean it up against this thing over here just so it doesn't fall all over the place. Take this, place it on top of the turret, and then break your eardrums. So then you have your turret in place nice and secure. That ain't going anywhere. So, it takes a little more than you'd like to do builds this way. Most amplifiers that are built today are built on wave soldered boards that are sort of put together almost robotically. So, they're done in a cost-conscious manner. And to me, that kind of is not what we want in this sort of thing. So this is like the lost art of building things the way it was done, in this case, in the 60s and into the 70s. By the time, Marshall still now, Marshall obviously has changed a lot. God bless them. I think they're going to be selling more, like, I don't know what you call those things, but like bottles for holding your water and Bluetooth headphones in the near future. So that's kind of a shock that happened, but that's sort of where it goes, because really doing things this way does not lead to an affordable high margin product. So that then gets left to people like me who are just dumb enough to want to do this. So we have all these ready to go, and then obviously I think in another build video I showed of how I have the jig that you mount this board on that you can start attaching your wires to, your wire leads to, and it has all the measured lengths that I want, so I don't have to deal with inconsistent wire lengths. But basically, the way I build an amplifier that's like a prototype is I'll go ahead and I will build the thing and tweak it until I got it the way I want, and then I reverse engineer it. So wire length in a guitar amplifier is a very important thing, like wire routing, wire length. That has to do a lot with the RF sort of signature of the amp, what it likes to pick up, what it likes to sort of lay down in terms of radio frequencies that can choke or enhance an amplifier's performance. So after I get it all worked out where I think the amplifier is displaying a good amount of synergy, meaning that the RF signature is enhancing the sound rather than detracting from it, then I'll take the amplifier apart and I will use the board that was in there to measure out my lengths of every single lead. So the next time I want to build that amplifier, I have my wire lengths exactly the same from unit to unit, and that there's not any variation there. So I think that's important to getting a consistent kind of sound that's also, optimized. So that's what goes on there. So these builds, they take a long time to kind of get together. Everything is done very old-fashioned, very meticulous. It's a labor-intensive process. It's really a labor of love, I've heard people say, because, I remember Three Monkeys amps. Years ago, I did a build video. Let me turn this around now. This is starting to get tipsy that way, so I'm going to start coming from this way. So years ago, during the Three Monkeys time of building amplifiers, I put together I don't know where we posted it. Greg posted it. But it was me building one of the Jose amplifiers for somebody, and went through all this process of exactly how, the chassis is drilled and cut, and everything is done by hand. The cabinets are built by hand. You're doing all of this drilling and setting of turrets, and at the end of it, most of the comments were saying you don't charge enough for what you're doing, which may be true, but I think more to the point of, I don't know whether people really have an idea of what goes into doing something like this. That it seems like, when you see the finished product, you don't really get a sense of how much work goes into this. So, it was interesting to give people a little look into that. And that's sort of what I like to do here as well, is sort of give like an idea of how I work and what I like to do. A lot of times I think, people want to know the schematics of things that I build and stuff like that. I'm not really interested in doing that. Everybody can come up with their own materials. I think there's enough copying in the world. I'm certainly guilty of that too. But, I don't really prefer to give out schematics. I mean, if you're a seasoned sort of guy, you're probably going to be able to figure out what I'm doing anyway, because it's not terribly schematic driven. It's more like, in anything in the world that's great, it's the execution that is the separator. It's not the schematic that makes the amplifier. It's the execution of it that makes it. So there you have our circuit board. So that's pretty much done. Now it just has to get mounted on a jig, and another few hours to put all the components on it. And well, first I attach all the wires to it, and then I put the components in, and then it can go into the amplifier itself. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, it was good to just kind of come back. I've been working on a new setup with the iPhone, so I still don't have it quite worked out, because I'm using some different types of equipment now too, which I wanted to show everybody. That's kind of fun to play around with. And I wanted to do it with the iPhone. It's more pedal board driven. So it involves this connection to put an interface into the phone and be able to have multiple inputs of different things. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use a mixer board, so I can mix in like a guitar sound with the mic sound, sort of like what I do upstairs, but with the iPhone from an overhead shot. So this is going to be the new sort of demonstration sort of like deal. So yeah, so that's cool. I think that's good for today. So just want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.